The phone rang at 2:47 a.m., shattering the silence of Marcus Chen's penthouse like a gunshot. He stared at the unknown number glowing on his screen, his hand frozen halfway to the glass of bourbon he'd been nursing for the past hour. 9 months. It had been exactly 9 months since he'd signed those divorce papers, since he'd watched Elena walk out of his life with nothing but a single suitcase and eyes. That held more disappointment than anger. "Mr. Chen?" The voice on the other end was crisp, professional, belonging to someone accustomed to delivering news that changed lives. "This is Dr. Sarah Mitchell from St. Catherine's Hospital. I'm calling regarding Elena Reyes." His heart stopped. "Is she hurt?" "What happened?" "She's stable now, but Mr. Chen, there's something you need to know. Ms. Reyes gave birth 3 hours ago to a healthy baby boy. She listed you as the father on the birth certificate. And before she went into emergency surgery, she asked us to contact you." The glass slipped from Marcus's fingers, amber liquid spreading across his imported marble floor like guilt made tangible. A baby. His baby. Elena had been pregnant when she left, and she'd never said a word. 30 minutes later, Marcus stood outside the hospital nursery. His $2,000 suit wrinkled from the desperate. Drive through empty city streets. Through the glass, a nurse held a tiny bundle wrapped in blue, and Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd thought Elena had taken with her when she left. "You can go in," the nurse said, smiling. "Your son is waiting." His son. The words felt foreign and familiar all at once. When they placed the baby in his arms, Marcus understood for the first time why people described love at first sight. Those tiny fingers. That perfect face. This was real in a way that mergers and acquisitions and billion-dollar deals had never been. "Mr. Chen?" Dr. Mitchell appeared beside him, her expression grave. "We need to talk about Elena." The surgery had been complicated, an emergency C-section followed by hemorrhaging. She would be okay, the doctor assured him, but recovery would be long. As Marcus listened, he thought about the Elena he'd married 7 years ago. The woman who'd brought him coffee during all-nighters, when his company was just a startup, who'd believed in him when investors laughed them out of boardrooms, who'd held his hand at his father's funeral and whispered that they'd build something beautiful together. But somewhere between the first million and the first 100 million, he'd forgotten her. Forgotten them, the late dinners she'd prepared that he'd missed, the anniversary she'd celebrated alone, the tears she'd stopped shedding because he was never there to see them anyway. "I'd like to see her," Marcus said quietly. Elena lay in the recovery room, pale against white sheets, looking smaller and more fragile than he'd ever seen her. Her dark hair spread across the pillow, and even unconscious, there was a strength to her that made his throat tight. He'd once promised to cherish this woman, and instead, he'd traded her for stock options and shareholder meetings. Marcus pulled a chair close to her bed and sat down to wait, his son sleeping in his arms. When Elena finally stirred as dawn light crept through the windows, her eyes flickered open and found him immediately. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You came," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out broken, not accusatory. "Elena, why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" Tears slipped down her temples. "Because I was tired, Marcus. Tired of being the woman you forgot about. Tired of loving someone who loved his empire more than his wife. When I took that pregnancy test the day after you missed our 7th anniversary, after you promised you'd be there, I realized I couldn't raise a child in a home without a father who was present. It was better to be alone than to be lonely in a marriage." Each word landed like a physical blow. "So you were going to raise him by yourself? Never tell me?" "I don't know what I was going to do." She looked at the ceiling, fresh tears flowing. "I moved back to my hometown, got a job at the library, tried to convince myself that we'd be okay. But then my water broke early, there were complications, and I was terrified. All I could think was that if something happened to me, you needed to know about him. That he deserved to know his father, even if his father had forgotten how to be a husband." Marcus gently placed their son in her arms, watching as her expression transformed into something transcendent. "I never forgot," he said softly. "I just got lost. And I'm so sorry, Elena. You deserved better than what I gave you. You both do." "I named him Daniel," she said, touching the baby's nose. After your father. That broke him. Marcus bent forward, pressing his forehead against the bed railing, and let himself cry for the first time since his father's death, for everything he'd lost, for the woman who'd loved him enough to let him go, for the son he'd almost never known. Let me help, he said when he could speak again. Please, I'm not asking you to take me back. I know I don't deserve that, but let me be there for him. For both of you. Let me figure out how to be the man my father raised me to be instead of the machine. Elena was quiet for a long time, studying him with those dark eyes that had once looked at him like he hung the moon. I'm not going to make this easy for you, Marcus. You can't just throw money at this and call it fatherhood. Daniel needs time, presence, love, all the things you forgot how to give. I know, and I want to learn again. If you'll teach me. Over the following weeks, Marcus did something he hadn't done in years. He cleared his schedule. He showed up at the hospital every morning with coffee for Elena and books to read to Daniel. He learned how to change diapers, how to hold a bottle at the right angle, how to soothe a crying baby at 3 a.m. His board of directors thought he'd lost his mind when he announced he was taking paternity leave. His investors questioned his commitment. Let them question. Marcus told Elena one afternoon as they sat together in her hospital room, Daniel sleeping peacefully between them. I spent years building a company while destroying everything that actually mattered. I'm not making that mistake again. Elena rented a small apartment when she was discharged, insisting she needed her own space. Marcus respected that boundary even as it hurt, but he came every day and slowly, he watched the walls between them begin to lower, not disappear. Trust, once broken, took time to rebuild, but soften. One evening, 3 months after Daniel's birth, Marcus arrived to find Elena crying on her couch, overwhelmed by exhaustion and postpartum emotions. Without thinking, he sat beside her and pulled her into his arms, letting her sob against his chest the way she used to during their early years. I'm so tired, she whispered, and I'm scared I'm not good enough for him. You're everything, Marcus said fiercely. Elena, watching you with him. It's like seeing the best parts of humanity in action. You're patient when I'm frustrated. You're calm when I'm anxious. You love him so completely, it makes me understand what love is supposed to look like. And it makes me remember why I fell in love with you in the first place. She pulled back, searching his face. Marcus, I'm not asking for anything, he interrupted gently. I just need you to know that every day I'm grateful. Grateful you didn't give up on me completely. Grateful you gave me the chance to know our son. Grateful that you're teaching me how to be human again. 6 months after that phone call that changed everything, Marcus and Elena sat in a park, watching Daniel take his first wobbly steps between them. Each time he fell, they caught him together, their hands meeting in the middle. And when Daniel finally made it from mother to father without falling, they both cheered, laughing with a joy that felt earned. Thank you, Marcus said as Daniel snuggled against his chest, exhausted from his achievement. For what? Elena asked. For hiding the pregnancy. She stared at him, shocked. What? If you'd told me that day, I would have thrown money at it. I would have hired nannies and bought the best of everything and never actually changed. Losing you broke me in the way I needed to be broken. It forced me to face what I'd become. And these last months, learning to be Daniel's father, learning to earn your trust again, it's made me into someone I can actually respect. He reached for her hand tentatively, and when she didn't pull away, he continued. I'm not the same man you divorced, and I'm grateful for that. Elena's eyes glistened. I'm not sure I'm ready. I know, and I'll wait. However long it takes. Because you two are my everything now. Not the company, not the money, not the empire. You. She squeezed his hand, a small smile touching her lips. Then keep showing up, Marcus. Keep being this man. Keep choosing us. Every single day, he promised. And for the first time in years, Marcus Chen understood what true wealth looked like. It was right here in a park on a sunny afternoon, holding his son with the woman he loved beside him, finally learning that the greatest success story he'd ever write wasn't built in boardrooms. It was built in quiet moments of presence, patience, and love. And that, he realized, was worth more than all the billions in the world.